Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hobby Lodge, and this video is going to be a response video to my friend Nerdy Yeezer, who has tagged me in a video response on what is my favorite movie genre and why. So let's just jump into it. Okay, so my favorite movie genre, and crikey, this was not easy to do. There are so many to pick from, and I'm going to try and narrow it down as much as I can because I think it's quite easy just to pick a quite high level sort of genre of film. Let's pick action, for instance, right? I mean, what movies don't have some level of action in it? It's quite a broad scope to say that. So I'm going to try and narrow it down. Doesn't mean that's the wrong answer, but it's just not my answer. My answer is going to be fantasy, and then you're going to say mine, but that's just also really wide. So I'm then going to nail it down to high fantasy. So this is sword and sorcery. This is monsters and wizards and dragons and all those sorts of things. And the reason why I call that one out is because when I think back to um, just everything I do, a lot of the nerdy sort of hobbies that I have in video gaming, tabletop wargaming, and in my films I watch, high fantasy is something I always go back to. That sword and sorcery is something that I always think about. The game right behind me there, which is called Moonstone, is based on the worlds of sort of Labyrinth, Dark Crystal, those types of things. The video game I'm playing at the moment is Baldur's Gate 3, which is Dungeons and Dragons themed. In fact, the whole game is based on the system. And the movies that I enjoy watching, every year I will guarantee watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I will absolutely probably watch the Hobbit trilogy. Not as good as the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but certainly, that's the bar that I think every fantasy film gets kind of marked against. Even the Dungeons and Dragons movie that came out only a couple of years ago is actually a really good romp of a fantasy film. So yeah, definitely those are things. And when I think about some of the old films, if we were to go back, it's when I was younger, I watched films with my dad, and then growing up watching films, Kroll jumps to mind, Excalibur, Conan, Red Sonja, Willow, Clash of the Titans, all just fantastic movies. Even I can probably get away with chucking the Sinbad movies in there as well, because absolutely skeletons and yeah, monsters and all sorts in those films. So and even then, like I've already mentioned, the Labyrinth, the Dark Crystals, the Never-Ending Stories, those movies, fantastic movies. Certainly the first one, Never Ending Story. Not too sure about the ones that came after. I'm going to chuck in there the Harry Potter films because I think that, as a dad growing up with kids in my later years, obviously we went through that. We've lived the Harry Potter life. We've been to the Warner Brothers studios. We've been to the Harry Potter world out in the US, and again, super good at being in that high fantasy world with elves and dragons and wizards and all that, but set in a more modern scene, obviously in this kind of wizarding school. I'm even going to chuck in some other films, and I'm probably pushing my luck a little bit with some of these, but 47 Ronin, an amazing martial arts film, but also mixed in that world of high fantasy. There's dragons in there, there's sword fighting in there, there's witches and wizardry going on. Constantine is probably a push, but I'm going to say I'm going to get away with it. It's got demons in it, it's got angels in it, it's got some magic and stuff going on, but maybe that one's a push to get away with high fantasy. But again, some other modern takes. Bright, for instance, a movie there with Will Smith. I actually really enjoy that film. It's a shame there won't be a second one because I think it could have been quite good to see, what happened if the high fantasy sort of world continued into the world, the modern day, where you've still got orcs and fairies and all these things going on. And there was even a dragon in the sky at one point in that film if you look out for it. So that was a really cool one. I probably can't get away with this one as well, but Highlander I'm going to chuck in there because Highlander to me, well, I'm going to have it anyway. You don't let me have it. It's sword fighting. It's immortals. It's, they go back into the past. Probably more real worldy than high fantasy, but I'm going to chuck in Highlander because I love Highlander. But yeah, that's my answer, right? My answer is high fantasy movies. I think about the films I get excited about watching. Of course, I love sci-fi and action on all those other things, especially when they intermix with fantasy as well. That's fantastic. But if I had to be really nailed down to movies I could watch again and again and again, it is those high fantasy movies. Even as someone who's played World of Warcraft for 20 years, the Warcraft movie is actually not that bad. The World of Warcraft movie is okay. It's pretty good. I've got it over there. Yeah, I think that's a genre that when I look at the other things I'm interested in: video gaming, tabletop war gaming, painting, uh, movies, everything in this space. I keep coming back to that sort of high fantasy, sword and sorcery, wizards and witches, dragons, and everything in between. So yeah, that's my pick. It's going to be high fantasy as my favorite movie genre, and hopefully I've explained why. So now I get to pick two people to keep this chain going. And my first pick is going to be none other than the retro chef. I want chef's choices on this one. Pretty sure if you go into a restaurant, you ask for chef. You don't want to order your food. You want the chef to pick your food for tonight. You want him to give you the best of the best. So chef, retro chef, I want the chef's choices for this one. And for my second choice, I'm going to pick This Round's on Me. So I'm going to chuck it overseas, see what those guys think over there, and by tagging them, one, I can cheekily get you to watch their live streams, because hopefully they might do this response in one of their Friday night live streams, and you get answered from potentially 3 people if all 3 of them want to get involved and give an answer. So yeah, I'm going to tag retro chef and This Round's on Me. I'll pop both the channels in below. Go and check them out if you don't already follow those channels. They're both great laughs, and yeah, that's my video response. So thank you very much, Nerdy Geezer, for tagging me in it. I hope you like the answer. Give me your comments below. Tell me some great high fantasy movies I've missed out. Unfortunately, they don't come too much anymore. There aren't many great fantasy movies being made in the sort of high fantasy world, but maybe there's some I've missed, so let me know. But otherwise, I'll see you on the next video. All right, thanks all, bye.